Hey guys, what is up? Uh Today I'm gonna try something new. I'm gonna try and make this something new that we do. Um One, I know it's been a while since I posted anything. I'm sorry. I've just been lazy. And two, yeah, I know I have a new new background. I kinda upgraded since the last time I made a video, so now you guys get this. Sorry for the scuffed green screen. It's not really a green screen, but we just work with what we have. So the new thing I want to do is try and go over all the patch notes that come out, because usually when they come out and I'm streaming, people will sometimes miss it. So I am going to be the guy that reads it and post it, so then anyone can go watch it. If they don't understand anything, I could try and explain it. I might not understand it, so if I get something wrong, correct me in the comments. I will say, like every other patch note, that these are not permanent. They are likely to change because Luthius gets complained to all the time, and then shit changes. So that is what we're going to be doing today. We're going to go over the new patch notes that came out yesterday at 9:07. Um, and they are pretty chunky. So I'm not gonna go super deep dive into anything unless it's something that actually piques my interest that affects PVM. So like faction stuff and PvP stuff. I'll go over it, but I'm just gonna lightly graze over it because it's not something I'm super interested in. But we'll still go over it, just not in detail. Okay, so first, the big thing is spawn rates. They're going to be boosted by 25% in all dungeons and boating. That means even though the server's super fucking populated, we will be getting faster spawn rates, which should mitigate the amount of mobs that are always dead. So should be able to just chill in one spot and farm if things start spawning faster. Okay, next, faster respawn weekly server bonus. The 15% special loot chance from the weekly bonus has been removed for dungeons and wilderness, and replaced with a faster spawn bonus. The faster respawn bonus for dungeons or wilderness increases the respawn rate by an additional 25%. So technically, if you go and farm in that dungeon after this spawn upgrade, things are going to be spawning 50% faster. So you're going to be making money even faster, or you're going to be getting fucked over because things are going to be spawning on top of you and you might not be fast enough to kill things. So just be careful, but this is a very nice update. Um, the special loot chance sucks that we're losing it, but 15% really didn't even feel like it existed in the first place. So I could see how it is uh, not a big issue. Um, Next, Sanctuary Dungeon. So this, I haven't read the Discord. I literally just woke up, but I can almost guarantee this one is a very hot topic right now. Uh, so during the Friday night reset each week, one dungeon will randomly be chosen as a sanctuary dungeon for the duration of the week. Sanctuary dungeons are basically trammel dungeons. So they are protected dungeons for that week, and no criminal actions can happen inside that dungeon, which is great. So that means newer players can go focus on that dungeon and not get stolen from. They can't get PK'd. They can learn the layout of that dungeon without having to worry about being harassed. It's still going to be a hard, like the same difficulty. It's just going to take the player harassment side out of the player dungeon. if that makes any sense. Um, so they can't get harassed by reds or thieves or anything. They can't be. I don't even think you could like boombox anyone in there. I think that would be counted as a criminal action. Um, so that's a very nice thing for new players and those that are like solo farmers or just tired of getting PK'd or stolen from. Uh, it's nice, but it also, you gotta realize this is gonna put a lot of people in a single dungeon, so there's gonna be a lot of steal killing, because if there's a lot of people in one dungeon just because they don't want to deal with reds and stuff, um, there's not gonna be a lot of spawns. That's why they probably boosted the spawn rate, which is great. Okay, but the trade-off for this, as seen here, loot drops and experience in the sanctuary dungeons will be reduced. So, it will tell you in the regional bonus board um, what dungeon it is every week. It will last for the whole week. It also will show up on the decoration map. Um, Sanctuary dungeon mechanics. Players cannot commit any criminal actions inside of a sanctuary dungeon. Gold value of creatures and dungeon chest and resulting loot and experience inside a sanctuary dungeon will be reduced by 50% of as normal. Okay, so this 50% is big. Um, but again, I think the only people that should realistically be only really farming in here, sorry, the only people that should realistically be farming in these dungeons should only be newer players, because it gives them a chance to make money. It might be 50% as normal, but that's still a safety net. They get to learn the dungeon, they're safe, they don't get scared off the server because they get harassed constantly. So this bonus is actually fantastic. It is a it's a large reduction in gold and everything, but I mean, if you're not getting harassed, I think that's a good starter for new players. uh they did try a new player dungeon with Irkton Bluffs, but people are shitheads and they still go into Irkton Bluffs and PK the new players. So I guess this is their answer to that, because people are just shitheads and they like to ruin other people's fun. So that is very nice. All right, so they also did a massive rework to the murderers and penalties, so we're gonna go over that now. Um, Murderers and sanctuary dungeons. Murderers will not be allowed into the sanctuary dungeons, obviously. Any murderers already inside the dungeon on Friday night will be ejected to Corpse Creek when it turns over, if that dungeon turns over. Society jobs and guild favors. There will not be any society jobs generated for any sanctuary dungeon, so that means you can't get a free points for just killing societies and shit. Guilds will not be able to activate guild favors inside sanctuary dungeons, so you can't counterbalance the 50% gold and XP. So that's good. If you're in a giant Zerg guild, you can't abuse that, so get wrecked. Oop. If a guild already has a guild favor active for the dungeon, that becomes the sanctuary dungeon. The guild favor has a 50% or more of its duration reduced, and it will be refunded to the guild. So, good. Murderers and penalties. So this is probably another really big hot topic that people are not very happy with. So I think it's pretty balanced. But we will see. I don't know if the stuff will stick. Usually when Luthius makes PvP changes, the PvPers get really butthurt and they riot, and then shit gets changed. So we will see. Uh, we are removing the existing murder penalty system that scales resurrection fees and dungeon restriction based on dungeon levels and so on. So they're getting rid of the old system. They're making a brand new one. This is the second one, I think, in over a year. So is this resurrection fee and dungeon restrictions? I think this got added near October last year. They did a revision of it. So now they're redoing it again because that obviously didn't work. It doesn't discourage group PKing. So now they're trying to focus on group PKing, which is going to be a big deal. So when a player commits a murder and is reported for it, that player's murder fee will default to 1K. Okay. Not massive. However, if the victim is able to report more than one player for their murder, the murder fee amount is increased by 250 gold per additional player beyond the first. Each of these additional players will be referred to as accomplices. Okay, here's an example. A player is attacked by five different players in a dungeon and is killed, i.e., a murderer and 4 accomplices. All 5 murderers will have a murder fee of 1,000 gold plus 4 times 250 or 200 gold associated to them. So that is, if you get dumped on by 5 people, they get a 2k gold bounty, I guess you can say. Still a slap on the wrist, but I think it gets a little bit better. The wilderness, so this one I actually kind of enjoy because it encourages people to go explore the overworld and farm overworld. So now people are really gonna get fucked over in wilderness. The wilderness is now treated as a standard dungeon for the purpose of aggression restrictions. It has no differences in handling compared to dungeons. I'm pretty sure what that means is if you go and get chased by a red in the wilderness and you kill that red in the wilderness, they get locked out of combat in the wilderness, which is a huge deal, in my opinion. Murder region restrictions. If a murderer dies in a punishable location, not gray zone or PvP area, they will have a region restriction placed upon them for every region they committed a murder in within the last 60 minutes. Region restrictions prevent a player from committing aggressive actions towards any blue in that area. So that means if, like I just said, if you kill, or a PK kills your farming partner while you're at Blood Cult Abbey, but you kill that PK is locked out of wilderness for the next 60 minutes. So they had to go to a dungeon, but maybe they got killed in a dungeon as well. So that really fucks them over and they can't go to that dungeon either. But it gets even different down below. I'll get to it in a second. Region restriction now also prevents players from committing beneficial actions towards any murderers or criminals in the areas as well. They can still heal blue players and allies, however. Okay. So I think what this is trying to do is if you're ever like in a dungeon and there's like a Zerg, we'll just I guess we'll use Bra as an example because I've seen them actually do this before. But there'll be groups of reds that run around, but they also have blue healers, and the healers will just follow them around and heal the red, and you can't attack that healer, or at least I think so. I think this is trying to prevent that, so it's unjustly one-sided, I think. The duration of all these region restrictions will be 30 minutes plus 15 minutes per highest accomplice count. Based on the highest accomplice count of any of their murders occurring over the last 60 minutes, regardless of location. Okay, that's a little confusing, but here's an example. The following counts. The following action all occurred within 60 minutes. The player commits a murder by themselves in Palma. The player then commits a murder with two players in the wilderness. The player then commits a murder with 5 other players in Ossuary. The player is then killed after running into Darkmire Temple. The highest accomplice count for any murder during the last 60 minutes is 4 players for their murder committed in Ossuary with 5 people. The player will now have an aggression restriction of 30 plus 15 times 4, so 90 minutes applied to Palma, Wilderness, and Ossuary. So I think this is to try and discourage people from farming in or PKing in groups, because the longer you're locked out of multiple dungeons because you have a large accomplice group, the less PKing you can do in groups. So I think this is going to try and encourage people to try and solo PK more, which I think does down a little. I forget where it's at. I think it does slightly balance out, and I'll get to that. Pretty interesting though. Slain murderers. When a slain murderer resurrects and pays their murder fees, the player that killed the murderer will receive anywhere between 25 and 50% randomized amount of the paid murderer's fee as gold added directly to their bank. Previously, it was only 33%, but that was always 33%. So if someone dies and their res fee is 100K, you could either get 25K or between 25K or 50K. So I mean, that's a pretty good bonus. But we'll see how high people actually can get, because I think getting 100K murder fee is going to be pretty fucking hard now, unless you're a trapper, tinker, bomberman. Players and tamed. Okay, rebalances, damage resistance. So this one I'm not super happy with, being a warrior. Not my favorite. Players and tamed / summoned creatures are now capped at a maximum of 75 damage resistance on any individual damage received, unless an effect specifically reduces the amount to 1 damage, such as Last Stand, parry finisher. So yeah, that one's kind of sucks. But it's understandable. They want everyone to be at the same. I just wish warriors like me were able to, I guess, get additional health or or something to try and have the same duration of life as a summon, because summons and tames are tanky motherfuckers, and I only have 100 HP, and it's rough. So I don't like that, but I'll accept it. This one down here is what I really don't like. Discordance. The effectiveness of discordance effects on creatures will now scale to be Bard printed discordance skill divided by 120% of normal. If a creature has multiple discordance effects in place on it from multiple bards, players will receive the discordance effect of the player with the highest printed discordance skill. Success chance and effect duration for duration, discipline. God, sorry. The successful chances and effect durations for discordance will continue to utilize a player's effective barding skill, i.e., bonuses from aspects, instruments, mastery chain links, supplementary skills, tracking, and forensic. Okay. Example: a player has an effective barding skill of 130, but a printed discordant skill of 90. If this player is the sole bard putting a discordance effect onto a creature, barding effects on the creature will be 90 divided by 120, so 75% of normal. Um, so the normal 25% discordance damage dealt effect on creature will be treated as 18.75. So it's a slight nerf for bards. It's not massive. Uh, it's just it's more of a solid thing. So it encourages you to have 120, which I don't know why anyone wouldn't have 120 discordance. I think it's probably the most broken barding skill, so you probably want that the highest you can get it. Okay, this one I don't like. Parry Codex. The parry finisher will now only potentially trigger when a player is at 33% health or lower. Previously it was at 50%. So that's a chunky nerf. I don't like this. The parry finisher has saved my ass so fucking much. And going below 33% HP is not something I like doing often. So this little sketchy. I don't like it. But I mean, if it helps the server for some reason, I don't get why it would help, but I'll accept it. Okay, summon creatures. So they reworked a bunch of summon creatures. Water elementals, Ragwitch. This is probably I think probably due to Mausoleum 4. If you go in there, most of the people are probably necromancers or summoners, because they can still solo Moz 4, and it's I mean, it's understandable if you're max chain and everything, you should be able to solo most things. But some of the people that I've seen in there are around tier 10 and don't have like a max chain or anything. So I think this is to try and balance it out and nerf summoners and tamers, or yeah, summoners slightly, so then everything is a little bit harder, which I think is it's a good mix. So special resist for water elementals and Ragwitch. Bleed / disease increased by 33%. Okay, that's probably because of the consort and everything else that's in there, that disease is like crazy. So yeah. Spell Siphon. Summoner's Tome upgrade now has a maximum of 15% damage resistance and now applies to all types of damage. Okay. Earth Elemental and Ancient Mummy. Spell resist, bleed, and disease reduced by to 33%. So now that's even less tanky. Stonewall. Summoner Tomes upgrade now increases damage resistance by 2.5% each tick, up to a maximum of 20 damage resistance, and now applies to all types of damage. Earthpool Summoner's Tome upgrade now has a maximum of 15% damage resistance of all types. Okay. Hit points. Uh, the base hit points of the following summoning types have been adjusted as followed. Air Elemental, Skeleton Fiend, reduced to 400. Fire Elemental, Lich, reduced to 300. Water Elemental, Ragwitch, reduced to 500. Earth Elemental, Ancient Mummy, 500. Energy Vortex, Jackal Spirit, reduced to 500. Demon and Vampire, Thrall, reduced to 500. Okay. So now we have PvP mechanics. This is I'm not going to go super deep into this. I'm just going to skim over it for you guys. Group damage tolerance. So this one is actually kind of important, so I'm going to read over this one. This is the one I was talking about earlier, or I hinted to earlier. Once a player has taken 4 sources of player-based damage within 1 second window of each other, within a 1 second window, each further player-based damage occurring within the same window will be I can't fucking say that word, to 10% penalty, applying to it up to a maximum of 90. Damage coming from players who flag green to the player will not be considered as group damage tolerance. So here's an example. Within 1 second window, player A is hit with 2 explosion spells, 2 energy bolt spells, a poison tick, and explosion pot, and 2 bow hits. Okay. Damage to the player will resolve as followed. 1. Explosion hit, no damage penalty. 2. Explosion hit, no damage penalty. E-bolt, no damage penalty. E-bolt, no damage penalty. Poison tick occurs with a 10% damage penalty. Guys, hold my cord out. Explosion poison hits with a 20% damage penalty. Bow hit with 30. Another bow hit with 40. So this basically means I don't know if this is specifically for like PvP events. I feel like it's probably catered towards like town struggle, but also in just normal farming. If you're out farming and you get dumped on by like 5 people at one time, I feel like this is to prevent that damage so you're not instantly wiped out. So that is a big deal. Contested hamstring. The duration of the hamstring mechanic is increased to 5 seconds. Damn. Okay. When applied between players who flag orange to each other. Okay. Interesting. So that's only for like the PvP events in dungeons and like faction events, I think. Magic resist skill. If a player is hit by a damaging spell cast by another player, they will recover 25% times magic resist skill divided by 100 of the mana cost of that spell, amount rounded down. If a player is hit by a area effect spell cast by another player, the amount of mana recovered will be divided by a total number of players hit, rounded down. Players will not be able to recover mana from spells cast by another player who's flagged green to them. Poison tick will not be considered spell damage. However, poison sting damage resulting from a failed poison upgrade will count as spell damage and will allow mana recovery. Okay, that's really big. I guess for casters, if you're getting into PvP, or if you're just a PVM caster, so a summoner or anything, it's really good to have magic resist, because you're going to be able to absorb mana when you get dumped on by casters, which could in fact give you mana to heal yourself while you're running away. Pretty good bonus. Inscription skills. If a player has protection or arc protection effect in place, they will now have a 30% times inscription skill divided by 100 chance to avoid spell interruptions caused by melee hits. Okay. The magic reflect spell will now have a 40% chance to remain in place after reflecting a player casted spell. That's really good. So I guess having 100 inscription on your PVM build is really worth having magic reflect on now, because it's a 40% chance to always have magic reflect active. Secondary weapon skills. If a player has multiple valid weapon skills on their character, they can qualify for damage bonuses and potentially unlock hamstring ability. For PvP or PVM bonus, valid weapon skills including archery, fencing, fishing, weird, macing, swords, and wrestling. If a player has 2 or more valid weapon skills of 80 value or higher, they can make hamstring attempts against creatures. Players will receive a 25% times second highest valid weapon skill melee damage bonus against creatures. Okay. If you have 2 weapon skills at 100, you get a 25% damage bonus against creatures. PvP bonuses. Valid weapon skills include archery, fencing, macing, and swords. So no wrestling. That's big. If a player has 2 or more valid weapon skills of 80 value or higher, they can make hamstring attempts against other players. Players receive a 10% times second highest weapon skill divided by 100 supplementary melee damage bonus against other players. Note, wrestling does not count as a valid weapon, secondary weapon for the purposes of PvP, as it would significantly buff all tank mage build characters, which is against the intention of the mechanics. Okay. So no fucking tanky mage builds. Fuck you, tanky mages. Arena. So this stuff I'm not super interested in, so we'll just go over it quickly. Tournaments, elo will still be tracked for tournaments. However, matches will no longer be seeded by players / team elo, and organization of matches will now be fully randomized. If during a tournament round a bye round is needed, it will be given to the player / team with the highest lifetime elo. Okay. Player tracking or elo tracking. At the start of each week, for each type of arena event, solo duel, team duel, solo tournament, team tournament. If a player has not participated in that type of event within the last 14 days, their lifetime elo will direct 5% towards the starting elo. Okay. Wrestling. Unarmed wrestling swings will now count towards hit and misses for the purposes of stat tracking for streaks. Okay. Streak balancer settings. Arena duels will now have a streak balancer set that attempts to reduce long streaks of consecutive hits and misses from players. If a player misses with 3 consecutive melee swings, weapon / unarmed, each subsequent swing will receive a cumulative 5% accuracy bonus that stacks until it hits. Okay. If a player hits 3 times in a row, it will get a -5. Okay. Duels and tournaments by default will have a streak balancer enabled. It'll add support to disabled player individual duels. Okay. Factions, handicaps. Players will no longer receive handicap bonuses for making progress towards waypoints. So. Okay. I don't know how many people are still doing factions, but yeah, we'll just go over it. Waypoints, players can earn up to 150 faction points from controlling the waypoint. Previously, it was 100. Players will now earn 1 war aspect experience for every 3 faction score they earn from waypoint control. Okay. Players must first have war aspect unlocked for their character to earn experience. Any waypoint is returned to 100% control, even if it did not change factions. It will be locked for 2 minutes. Flag stealing. Players can now earn up to 150 faction score from progress from flag secured. Previously 100. Flag purification can earn up to 75 from purifying a flag instead of 50. Flag securing 150 instead of 75. Okay. Player kills. Players who have died within the last 60 seconds are no longer worth any faction score when killed. Previously within 5 minutes was 5 minutes. Players will no longer receive a faction score bonus based on the number of flags held by a faction. Players are now worth a baseline of 100 faction score. Previously it was 50. Upgraded player kills occurring near a waypoint, faction castle, or inside a faction dungeon are now worth 200 faction score instead of 100. Killing a flag carrier is now worth 300 points instead of 250. Kills to give. Players will now receive 1 kill to give for every hour. Players restore 1 kill to give for every 50 faction score they earn from waypoints, flags, and faction spawns. Same as before. Players can now see how many kills to give they currently have at the bottom of page 1 in the faction menu. At the bottom. Okay, so down at the bottom down here. Okay. I don't know what kills to give really does. So, faction kills. Players cannot earn any faction score for involvement in faction kills if they themselves have 0 kills to give. Okay, so I think this is just like discouraging just going out there to murder people. So, I mean, I think it's just you get 6 kills and you'll get points for those 6 kills. But if you go kill a 7th person, you won't get any points. I think that's what it is. Stealing attempts and picking up drop flags. Players must have at least 1 kill to give in order to begin a flag steal attempt. Players must have at least 1 kill to give in order to pick up a dropped flag. Okay. Flag dropped. Any factions can pick up any drop flags and attempt to secure it, regardless of waypoint control. Factions must still always purify any flag that is dropped by before they may secure it. Factions are still restricted in carrying at most 1 flag at a time. You cannot carry multiple flags. Okay. Flag control bonuses. For each faction flag that a faction has secured in their castle, that faction will now receive the following bonus while inside the faction dungeons. 5% damage to creatures, 5% gold and loot chance, and 5% faction score earned when killing faction spawns. I think this is kind of like I've never done factions, but I know people that do it, and every time I talk to them about it, they always tell me it's not good. The faction dungeons, I definitely think this should be more rewarding because I mean I don't think people are really going out of their way to farm faction dungeons because it's just not good. Uh, who knows? I don't care about factions, so not my problem. I mean, if they boosted the loot, then yeah, I would definitely go farm faction dungeons. Uh, faction spawns moderately uh, increases the chance of faction spawns occurring inside of a dungeon. Faction score, uh, the faction score value for each faction spawn has reduced to 20 gold value. Previously was 33. Faction dungeon score. Any faction score earned from killing faction spawns in faction dungeons will no longer immediately be added to a player's faction score and will now instead be held and tracked separately during the week for the player faction dungeon score. Okay. Cool, I guess. During Tabula Rasa, a player's faction dungeon score will become capped to a maximum of 2 times their current faction score total. Okay. The capped faction dungeon score will be combined with their current faction score to create a total faction score that will be used to determine the reward for the week and will show up as last week's score. Okay. Example. Throughout the week, a player earns 400 faction score from waypoints, flags, kills. The player also earns 10,000 faction dungeon score from killing faction creatures. During the Raza, the player faction dungeon score will become capped at 4,000 times 2. Okay. The player's capped 8,000 dungeon faction score is then combined with their normal 4,000 current faction score. They get 12,000. Okay. Faction silver. Players will no longer earn faction silver based on their rank percent in their own faction. Players will now earn faction silver based upon their faction score for the week. With the amount of faction score needed to earn faction silver increased progressively at different threshold ranges. Additionally, players may receive a bonus for the faction silver earned based on how their entire faction performs during that week, known as faction control rank, previously called last week tally. Explain later. Players earn faction silver within the following threshold ranges: 0 to 5,000 faction score, 1 faction silver earned for every 1 faction score within this range. 5,000 to 10,000 faction score. 0.75% faction score earned at 1 point. Okay. So it goes down the higher that you are. 50% at 10 to 15. And 25% at 15. Okay. Don't really understand that, but okay. Player faction score total is 16,000 during the Raza. They will receive baseline of 5,000 times 1 plus 5,000. Oh, okay, that makes more sense. I didn't know that it added all of them. Faction control rank and faction silver bonus. At the end of the week, when the faction silver amount are being calculated, each faction will have a control rank determined for them based on the control and waypoint and faction flag throughout the week. The amount of faction silver each player receives then be adjusted based on their faction control rank. First place control rank, 15% faction silver received. Okay, so the more flags that you control during the week, the more you get. Players can view the faction control rank. Okay, blah blah blah. Okay. Oh, we're done. Almost. A player received 12,000 faction silver. The player's faction was determined second place, so the player will now receive 12,000 times 1.10, so 13,000. Faction silver maximum. Players are capped at earning a maximum of 20,000 a week. Okay. Primary faction. If a player participates in multiple factions throughout the week, changing guilds or changing their faction, or guild switches their faction, the player will receive a primary faction determined for them based on their faction they earned most faction score total. Okay, example: during a week, a player earns 10,000 faction score while in the Andarian faction and 2,000 while in the Cameron faction. The player's primary faction of the week will be considered Andaria. Oh, god damn. That wasn't even a long one, guys, but there you go. We are done. It was a pretty chunky one. I will say the spawn rate and Sanctuary Dungeon, I like the idea. I did not like the damage resistance and the nerf to the parry stuff, but it's not my job to question. I'm just gonna continue playing the game. I do hope this gets added pretty soon because I am curious. I did hear a little bit of whisper. I got sent a screenshot in my guild Discord of Luthius saying that he is gonna start working on Aegis Keep 4. So that's coming. You can already see it on the map. But he's going to be working on that. And he said he hopes that it should be within 3 to 4 weeks. So not going to rush Luthius if he is watching. I'm not going to try and spread any lies or anything. But I mean, if we get more floors and more dungeons, I'm totally down for that. I'm not going to suggest that every new floor in every dungeon needs its own like event like Mausoleum just had. It would be really cool as someone like me that's really into decorations. I'd totally be down for it, but you don't need to flood the server with events just for releasing the dungeons. I think personally, if they are going to release dungeons, new floors for every dungeon, I think they should just rip the band-aid off and release all of them at one time, so that way everyone has more stuff to go farm instead of crowding to certain populated areas like SSC, Moz 4, the new area in Nucero. People are still super crowded down there, and that's been out for over a year. So I do think that they need to release these things, especially Eric. I don't think Eric watches my videos, but Eric, you better fucking release that goddamn dungeon soon. You've been talking about it, and I'm very hyped about it. I want to farm a super hard dungeon. Anyway, guys, this was the pilot episode. We will probably do more. We'll see. I'll see you guys next time. I hope this helped you guys out, and I'm sorry that it took 50 minutes. Holy shit, did not know that. Anyway, I'll see you guys next time. Have a good day.